I left yesterday in a bit of a. I wasn't satisfied with this drawing of Mr. Tucker Carlson. So, whilst I was sat downstairs this morning, I went back to it, made a few changes. So this is where I left off yesterday. I realised the hair was possibly not looking right because it was looking white, so I basically replaced it with dark hair, made his head a little bit shorter, looked a little bit better. But then I realised I needed to do more with the face. I also made the eyes smaller. I don't know if you can see how I went from quite big eyes, kind of made them a little bit smaller, just scaled them down. And from there I decided to split his head into two parts. And in there I was going to put a little figure who I eventually redrew as Vlad. So I'm going for a bit of a Men in Black thing going on. Tucker Carlson as the mouthpiece of the Kremlin, which has been often said. He does like the old tyrant as Carlson, so I was doing this downstairs and I thought I may as well come upstairs and stream part of my efforts, because yesterday I was really not happy with how it had looked and how it had ended. Make sure everything's working. The stream's working fine. I think it is. Let me just check the yeah, it seems to be. So I will continue. But that's how it sometimes is, you know, with drawing. It takes effort. You know, you try something, it doesn't work. It wasn't quite. It just something wasn't quite there. I just didn't have a level of likeness which was making the cartoon work. So I'm much more pleased with it now because it really needed either pushing into a really grotesque way area, which his face doesn't really lean into because of the way it was lacking any kind of extremes of fat or there's just nothing much to work from. So for some reason I just wasn't getting far with it. So I'm pleased with it now because I've had something to hang the whole thing on, which is this little figure. And I like the idea of the brain splitting open. I was going to do the old joke of of having a tiny brain, but again, it was all right. I experimented with it, but it didn't quite work out. I can also I left it yesterday talking about tyrants. How tyrants have these weird little pouty bottom lips. I mentioned Farage, Putin. You know, Putin's got one of these little things here, which is kind of strange. Farage, Putin, Trump, and also Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate's got a really weird mouth. They all seem these right wing crazies seem to have these weird mouths, which I said I wondered whether it was down to some kind of biological nurture rather than nature about them. And I mentioned the James Bond villain who had a gap in his teeth, and I still think, I've not checked, but it was Hugo Drax. And the reason he has I did remember the reason why he's got a gap in the teeth and why there was a theory of it. It was because he sucked his thumb a lot as a child, and that's how it came back to like the absence of the teat. So yeah, I did wonder whether this is all some strange, unexplored obsession. These weird little pouty bottom lips. Again, it's a pretty dull Sunday. Weather's still howling with the wind. It feels like autumn now. I think it genuinely does feel like autumn. Which is probably why I watched a film last night. In fact, I watched 2 films last night. I'm back to film watching, which is a bit of a relief because I've just not been in the mood for films lately, but there's not been a great deal I've particularly wanted to watch. So last night I went back and started to catch up on my backlog of films to watch. And I watched 2. I watched Robert Altman's 3 Women. And then I watched La Strada by Federico Fellini. 2 great movies. Although I have mixed feelings about... I enjoyed the Altman more than the Fellini. The Fellini was dark. Very dark. I thought it was going to be a little bit lighter than it was. I don't know why, but I just felt like it was going to be... I think I'd seen clips, I'd seen pictures of it, and I knew it had something to do with a clown and a fairground. And I had this image it was going to be more of a comedy, but it was a dark, very tragic tale. Great movie, but maybe my mood wasn't great after watching Altman's movie, which itself was pretty dark. I should have gone for something lighter after watching the Altman. Really enjoyed the Altman though. It was called 3 Women. And it was about 3 women. Actually, it was about 2 women. It was Shelley Duvall and Sissy Spacek in the main 2 roles, and there was a 3rd role played by an actress whose name has immediately slipped my mind. But it was more of a minor role. But they were playing the kind of... Well, this is what was great about it. It was one of those films which sort of exists in a place of ambiguity. There's lots of symbolism in it, and you could read it probably in multiple ways. But the way I read it was that there was 3 women who all represented the 3 ages of women. The character whose name escapes me was pregnant and suffering a lot. She suffered a lot. And then there was the Shelley Duvall character who was kind of represented the kind of sexual woman. She was always searching for men. Often kind of quite sad. Her character was sad and rather tragic in the way she was constantly defining her reality by the men she was seeking and was being frustrated by it constantly. So she was just wondering how to have it going up into the skull. And then the 3rd character was a young girl who was kind of pre-sexual. She was full of mischief. She was played by Sissy Spacek, who was brilliant in it. I watched it originally because I like Altman. I don't think I'm pretty certain I've never seen 3 Women. But I watched it because I've always been a fan of Shelley Duvall. Keep wanting to say Shelley Winters, but Shelley Duvall, and she was good in it. But I was blown away by how good Sissy Spacek was as this troubled teenager who I think she was looking for a kind of role model. She was looking for her role in life, which is why I think the film was partly about masks and the masks we adopt to find our place in life and how we basically copy other people. We always want to identify, we fall into a trope or type, or even, and I think this is partly what the film was about archetypes. I think there was probably a Jungian interpretation of the film, which was all about dreams and stuff. Which I'm not particularly up on that sort of stuff. I'm not a psychoanalyst or into that, but I think that was possibly part of what the film was dealing with. But she was pre-sexual, or she was she was emerging into a kind of young female adulthood, and she was also probably troubled. Well, not probably, she was deeply troubled. And without spoiling it, there was lots of other themes of like doubles and twins and things, but it was one of those films which it had all these layers of meaning, but it also had just a great story. The story was like compelling. Altman can be like that. Sometimes I watch his films and I don't quite know why I'm enjoying them so much, but yeah, it was a great film. Some beautiful photography. Just like that kind of mid-America, suburban, a bit Rust Belt. Don't quite know where it was set actually. It was very middle America, bit Paris, Texas, that sort of those sort of vibes, dusty roads, cafes. Yeah, but it was a great movie, truly great movie. And then I watched La Strada, which I've been trying to watch more Fellini. I was originally never a fan of Fellini's. I've struggled in the past to watch 8.5. I think I've watched it twice, and I think I've probably fallen asleep in it twice. Don't know why. It's just a film which is always, oops, I don't know. Yeah, I always find it difficult to watch. But then I watched a couple of his other films. One I'm going to have to find on my shelf because I can't remember the title. It was in colour and it was about... I just remember a guy breaking down on the road somewhere, and there was this really funny moment which had me in hysterics. And since then I've come back to Fellini, kind of intending to watch as many of his movies as I can. And a few weeks ago I watched Roma, his epic about Rome, which just blew me away. Just a great movie. So when I thought, oh yeah, La Strada, I'll give that a try, and it was about a kind of simple-minded country girl who was sold to this circus strongman played by Anthony Quinn. Another actor, an actor who I've never taken to. I don't know why. He always seems to play really brutish roles, and in this he was a real brute. And he's brilliant at it, actually. I mean, I've watched a couple of Anthony Quinn films lately, and I'm slowly beginning to really like him. But I think I have to watch Zorba the Greek. I've never seen Zorba the Greek. But yeah, it was. He plays this brutish circus strongman who kind of abuses her and treats her awful. But she sticks with him until the end, and it was a sad film, and a little bit upsetting because he really was horrible, and she was such an endearing character. She had like very expressive eyes. Chaplin apparently really rated the film and really liked her performance in it, but what was odd was she really did remind me of Chaplin. I think there was obvious... I think the film had to be clearly influenced by American silent movies. There's a moment where she pauses near some flowers, and she picks one and attaches it to her lapel, and she wears a bowler hat, and she's she's got the clown makeup, the white face, and yeah, she did remind me of Chaplin, but her smile also had the smile of Stan Laurel. There was an element of Stan Laurel in her performance, which made it very bittersweet, because it's kind of very loving and lovable characters in this really abusive relationship. So I'd read that it makes lots of people cry, but it didn't make me cry. But I was really tired last night, so I probably wasn't in the best frame of mind for it. I do usually cry quite easily in movies, but not last night. Not sure whether I've not lost a little bit of the hair. That might look better if it's more like that. Should have watched a different film. Somebody on Twitter recommends that I watch Pretty Woman, which I've never seen. The main reason I've not seen it is because I don't like Richard Gere. I've never been a fan of Richard Gere. I just don't like Richard Gere. I find his I'm not a fan of actors, kind of male actors who are very posing and preening. Sheer jealousy that I'm not like that myself. But yeah, I've never been a fan of Richard Gere. Plus, the premise of the film seems really, really distasteful. I don't know why anybody thought it just seems very distasteful. I suppose times have changed now, though, so I suppose you can't really make. You're not supposed to make moral judgments, but the idea that they could make a wholesome romance out of the prostitution racket just seems. I'm not sure how we're meant to feel about it these days. I think these days it'd be called sex workers, and I think there's a different attitude, but I don't know. Just seems something really distasteful about the whole thing. There's another film made about the same period, wasn't there, with Robert Redford. Robert Redford, Woody Harrelson, and I don't know why I've got Sean Young's name in my head, but it's not Sean Young. It was the woman who was married to a famous actor. It might have been Tom Cruise. What was her name? I can't remember. There's a film about somebody, a billionaire paying a couple $1 million to spend the night with the woman, which was, again, maybe at the time it was considered a neat idea. I'm not sure it would go down so well these days. After Me Too. Yeah. How's that looking? That looks better. Like I said, I really wasn't pleased with this last night. So I partly why I came back on today to make up for it. Although make up for it's not perhaps the right word, but I didn't want to give the impression that I do an hour and a half on something and I give up on it. I work a lot more than that on an image sometimes. I wouldn't know what my longest time ever on something is. I suppose one of the comic strips they can take a very long time. And when I did my Book of Monk cartoons, I hate to think how long it took me to draw some of those, because they weren't always in one session or in one period of time. There might have been. Sometimes I went back to rework them, and I'd take the original cartoon and I'd just keep refining it. And I probably did that for like a good year, just constantly going back to different cartoons and tweaking them. Not sure I'm happy with my Putin. The eyes look a little bit too kind. I might try to redraw those eyes. They are far too kind. Not malign enough. Let's try again. Let's go to a slightly smaller pen. That's better. Given as soon as you angle the top line of an eye, you immediately give it a menacing look. But I also want his eyes to be really kind of hooded. So he's just peering out from underneath his lids. Which is a surprisingly difficult effect to get. If you leave too much of the eyeball exposed, you don't get it. It just doesn't work. I'm going to have bags under his eyes as well. More like a, I don't even know what the phrase is, more like a droopy bit where you see the flesh under the eye, like that. Clean some of this up while I'm here. I actually did, on this I actually went to, I didn't draw this in situ, I actually drew it over here originally, and sometimes it's just easier. Take it outside the context of the picture. I was just wanted to get a likeness and I was getting sidetracked. Let me have a look at his mouth. Yeah, Putin's got a very characteristically shaped mouth. What have I done? Oh, hang on. There we go. I've not got the shape of his mouth right. Let's erase that. Right, so he goes down in the middle. It kind of. Let's see if that is about give me the order. Kind of that. So I've actually done it wrong again. So it's try it again. So it goes down in the middle. So it goes up, down, down, up. See if that's right. So it goes. I think I might have gone too far up on the edges. This looks like the kind of thing where what the hell are you doing? But it does seem to make a little difference if you can get the mouth shape right. You just get a little bit more lightness. Still not sure that's sort of like any of that, to be honest. Try it again. Again, I'm not happy, but what I'll do is I'll leave it for the moment. Have a think about it. I think I prefer it to how it was before, but still not perfect. Not quite sure why, but I've discovered that if you want to make the eyes look more, the word is sallow, just make the insides of them more elongated. I mean, nobody's going to see that kind of detail that close, but for me it makes a difference. I don't ever need this, but hoping to watch some more films tonight, but I don't quite know what I'm going to watch. I don't think it'll be another Fellini or another Altman. I think I might need something a bit lighter. There are a few films that have come out recently I quite like to watch. I still want to watch the Bike Riders, the new film about the Hell's Angel. Or I think the kind of angel, Hell's Angel, whatever the gang was called. Supposedly based on a real book, but I don't know the original book. I've read Hunter Thompson's Hell's Angels book. That was a good book, as was everything he wrote. But it's not a subculture that interests me that much. But apparently it's got good reviews, and I want to see that. I want to see that film Maxine. I didn't really fancy seeing it at the cinema. I just didn't know whether it was worth the journey. But again, it got good reviews, but it looked a bit the kind of film where it could easily turn it off after 10 minutes if it's not for me. I don't turn many films off, to be honest. I do tend to stick through them even if I'm hating them. But occasionally I'll do that. But very rarely. And I've not yet walked out of a film. Ever. I don't think I've ever walked out of a film at the cinema. Come close a few times. Absolutely loathed Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein when it came out. That was one of the worst films I've ever seen in the cinema. Mel Brooks's Men in Tights, hated it. Just hated it. Got a bit of a love-hate relationship with Mel Brooks. I kind of like him, and I like hearing about him, and it makes me happy that he is around, but a few of his films have just left me really cold. Too much joke and not enough substance. And I find Naked Gun films and Airplane. The clips that you see on Twitter and everything, they're great, 30 seconds. But an hour and a half of that is way too much for me. I'm just going to have a cup of coffee whilst sensation comes back into my arm. Today's coffee is still, I think, Asda's own. It's not bad actually. Significantly cheaper than the other stuff they buy. They sell some of the named brands, but I normally get Law if I can get one of the deals on the Law package. But like I've said before, I'm currently still economising. To be glad when I don't have to economise. So I think that's looking not too bad so far. I'm just going to put in a bit of a brow. I think you might need a brow to break up this upper upper stage of his head. Or do I don't know. Maybe I just did it too thick. Or better, I might just imply it with a little bit of shading. This is the first stream I've actually gone live, properly live. I think I've come to the conclusion now that it doesn't matter whether I go live or not live. Nobody's watching or listening, so it saves me a lot of messing around later. Question here now is, do I go for the do I go and put in some background? Do I put in some shadow at the back, or do I just leave it sitting in front of this white, just have a whiteness? I'm trying to think of all the other drawings I've done. I've tended to leave them sitting in white. And if I'm thinking these are going to be part of a series, I'm trying to imagine how the entire series are going to look. I think I'm going to have to do this crosshatched because I don't want it to look too much like a striped summertime blazer, like bad BBC TV presenters were in the summer. Richard Whiteley, Stuart Hall. That was kind of Alan Titchmarsh. People who are the exact embodiment of everything I loathe about the country. Ugh. I often wish I was a punk, but I've never had the courage to go fully punk. Or the hair. How's that look? That looks better. I'm actually quite pleased with this so far because yesterday I was really unhappy with how it had ended. And I knew I could get the lightness better, but I just didn't have much idea of what to go with it. And I've done this, I'm sure I've done this joke before, this gag of the little figure driving somebody. But in this case I think it's pretty apt. I'm just wondering where to go next with this. I'm actually pretty pleased with it. I mean, given where we began, or given where I began this morning, which was there, and now I'm there, that's a lot better, a lot more successful. I'll tell you what I think I'm going to add. I'm going to add a few more levers. I want some of those like they had in old style trams where there's like those things going on. We'll have another one of those that look a bit more like a brake lever. Out, in, out, out, in. Yeah, that looks better. I wonder if I should give him a seat. Give him a kind of... These are the kind of details that don't necessarily lend a great deal to the picture, but they do make it just... I used to say the word pop, but it makes the whole thing feel a little bit more substantial. In fact, I can't crosshatch much of that because it's going to look too much like his... In fact, what we're going to do is I'm just going to black it out. Yeah, I'm going to black it out, and then I am going to add a little bit of... I'll use a little bit of white to just create some highlights to imply it's a kind of shiny leather. Right, so we come in with a little bit of white. There we go. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. I'm just wondering whether I'm just still I don't know whether it's I don't know to have more fun with this and sort of... Nah, I don't what I was thinking of doing, and I don't think I can, is going with some kind of mechanism, kind of that sort of thing. Kind of so that sort of thing, as though no, I don't like it. I could do it, I could work it, but I don't think it really... no, I think it confuses it too much. It confuses it too much. Let's have a quick look at how his face looks. Pretty well shaved, so I don't need to do any details of his shaving. So what I just want need to do is I do need to add a little bit of a brow lower down. And then I'm going to call it quits. Because I've got other things I want to draw today. I'll leave it at that. I think that's as good as it's going to get for the moment. So yeah, I've covered all the things I wanted to cover. Explained all the things I needed to explain left over from yesterday, and yeah, leave it there. Thank you for listening, watching. Please like, please subscribe. Send me any questions, comments. David Waywell at Twitter, waywellcartoons@gmail.com, and see you again. Thank you. Bye.